So, it's called ballet ball, like Dr. Cole said. This is what I did. You can see it's like following what I'm doing, and then when I did three, it's like, yay, horseshoes. And then throw it up. So it started with like, when I was younger, I would like have ballet class, and then I'd be like screwing stuff up, so I'd go home and try to practice it. And I had this like wobbly PVC pipe bar that my dad made, and like I was practicing stuff, but then I would go to class and it would be like wrong, or I practiced it like incorrectly or whatever, and developed bad habits. So like I thought it was a good idea to create something that would be like correcting you when you're on your own and you don't have a teacher like sitting right next to you. And then in my dance history class, I learned about this person called Merce Cunningham, who created this, well, I don't know if he created the software, but he used it to like do his choreography called Lifeforms, and it basically like he could just like take this model of a like dancer and just like morph it however he wanted to, and then he just like hand over the recording of the piece he created to his dancers and just make them do it, which was kind of like insane for the time because it was in the 80s. And then like last year, my mom and I were talking over Mexican food, and we were like, what am I going to do for my senior project? And she's like, well, you should do something with dance. Well, like, I think the entire department decided I should do something with dance. So, yeah, so I decided on the Xbox Connect because the Wii doesn't have like as much like cool stuff with their API, I guess. Which I don't even know if it's open source, but. So why is this interesting? Because the Connect is new, so it's like not a ton of people have developed with it. There are some people and like some books, but a lot of the stuff online is like sometimes inconclusive. And then again, we're going to create some sort of computer to replace a human being's job. I mean, eventually maybe. Probably ballet people are like more conservative than that, but yeah. And then I thought it was really interesting because it's like a collaboration between the arts and the sciences, which like doesn't happen very often. So, yeah. So some similar projects that I found online like last week were Passe Ballet, which is I'm not sure if it's like an actual Connect application, but it supposedly the person is like a graphic designer, so it might just be like like a theoretical interface, but that has like the progression over time that I really wanted to implement but didn't have the time to. And it also like shows the user like a separate like piece of movement and then like lets them do it with some character next to them. And then there's also this thing called Super Mirror, which actually the interface looks a lot like mine, where it's just like a stick figure, but the dancer is dancing on like on top of the like perfect stick figure, so they can tell like directly underneath them whether they're like in alignment and stuff. So for research, I used the Channel 9 MSCN website a lot. That had like a lot of good tutorials. If anyone wants to do like anything with Connect, use that website because they have like videos and code posting and everything. And then Tech Empower was nice enough to let me start my project during my internship there, and they like let me set up a computer in like a little room and like wave my arms around. And then I had to learn C# and XAML, and then the Xbox Connect API, which wasn't too hard. This is like pretty much what the Connect API returns. So it just returns like a series of joints on the human body, like in an array, and they have like an X, Y, and Z coordinate, which the Z is like basically on the floor this direction, and the Y is what generating math processes the Z. And here's the architecture flow. So we have the dancer. The dancer is included the Connect, and then the Connect sends the data to the computer for like all the data points of like where every joint is. And then my application takes that information and like determines if the user is like in the proper alignment or doing the right movement or whatever. So my milestones were getting a video stream. That was like super exciting because the beginning of the working with the Xbox is like really confusing, or the Kinect. So like I got a video stream and I was like, yes, and then like I got all of Tech and Power turned into like this little random little and then the beginning to correct the user, so like I was like, okay, is like this hip like vertically in line with this hip, or are they like syncing in one hip or something? And so I got a video of that. I was like super stoked. There's probably like me talking, but so like you can see like early implementation really ugly, just like your right hip's lower than your left. And then if I brought my hip back up, it should go away eventually in this video. There we go. And then the next thing was like allowing the user to like, instead of me having to like click on the button that I created and then like go stand by the Kinect and test it, like I could just stand in front of the Kinect and like hold my hand up in the air and like the button would turn on, which was super cool. And so I had like a bunch of people like try that out because I was like super stoked on it, and like a bunch of people were just like standing there with their arm like forever, just letting it toggle, and they were like, what's going on? And so Quinn was finally like, well, you have to make them take their hand out of the box before it turns back off or whatever. So this was what it originally was. You stick your hand up, then like it just toggles. But I fixed that, so Quinn, it's okay now. And then the PA gesture was like super hard because the complications I'll talk about in a minute. But that one, it like I got it done like, well, I thought I got it done last week, and then there were like a bunch of things not working with it, so that's why it's sort of. So like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So these were the complications that like I found, especially with the plie. I mean, I found them early on, but there were a lot of things that like I didn't know until I got to the plie, and then it became like a huge issue. So the Kinect, like you'll see when I demo, like you can be standing there like pretty much perfectly still, and your feet will be like on the little screen. And like I have a smoothing function on the data too, so it's like if I like in ballet, like it's really important for you to be standing still in certain like instances, and so like I have this thing that says, okay, like if your feet are stable, then you're like in the right position to be doing plie. But then like half the time the Kinect is like, no, they're not stable because they're all like moving around, but it's really just because the Kinect is like just not like, it's just returning like different like series of long digits, even though the user hasn't really moved. So to sort of like correct that and deal with it, I created this data type object called a range, which is basically like you take in the joint and like the position of where the joint is, and then like you say, okay, well anything like -5 from the joint and anything +5 from the joint, like I consider to be equal to the joint, because that made it like less of a gigantic issue to deal with like equality of like position of joints. Also, like if you're like the buttons that I have created, like you're only allowed to turn them on with your left hand. But if you like completely turn around, you can turn it on with your right hand, and the Kinect has no idea. So and like a lot of these things are corrected with the Kinect too, which is like kind of really cool, but obviously don't have that. And then yeah, so and then also like if the Kinect doesn't see a joint, basically what it does is like it'll assume where the joint is based on like where your other joints are. So like if it can see your knee but it can't see your ankle, it'll just assume that your ankle is like somewhere like projected from the knee, which is kind of an issue because sometimes it causes issues like this, where I swear I'm doing plie in this, like my legs are not going into the splits at all. But in this video you can see that like my right leg is going to be like, woo, way over here, and my feet did not move. So like there's a bunch of like, all the time like I'm trying to test stuff and it just sort of does that, and it's like, well, I guess that's not good. And then I also found out this past weekend, which was quite lovely, that if the computer is not fast enough, then the Kinect cannot properly interact with the computer, in which case the whole thing just blows up and doesn't work. So I had to, like yesterday, I switched between like 3 computers because the they were just like, it wasn't happy with him, so I guess it's like super picky. Hopefully that's also corrected with that Connect too. And then the future, so I really hope, like, if I could do this again, I'd switch to Connect 2, obviously. And then I want to have the tracking of the progress. Like, or really, at the beginning of this, I was like, I'm going to have cool graphs of, like, this is how good your turnout was, and this is how good it is now, and, like, this is how good it is, like, in these certain moves, and, like, just, like, all these cool, like, statistics on your own improvement, but didn't have time for that. And I also want to implement the rest of the bar, which is a lot of moves. And I also want to give the user an avatar instead of, like, a stick figure. This is kind of like, stick figure. And that's where my code is, if you want to clone it. It's fully, like, portable, because I had to do it so many times. So, not a problem. And questions?
What kinds of problems did you have with the sensors and the accuracy of the sensors?
So, like, I don't really know how, like, it really works, but it basically throws out, like, a bunch of red dots on the rim that you can't really see. And, like, the Connect, like, I won't move the Connect, and, like, I could just stand, like, as still as I could possibly stand, and it'll, like, have, like, I'll print out, like, the decimal points and everything, and they're, like, jumping out in place. So, basically, that was, like, the issue with the accuracy. At least, I know that a human being is, like, always a moving, like, thing. So it's not, like, obviously it's not going to be an exact, like, always stagnant number, but, like, it was jumping a lot more than I felt like it should have for, like, standing pretty still. So.